Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello there, Stanley Carr here. You know, I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one-of-a-kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He has competed for numerous independent wrestling promotions across the Northeast. I'm pleased to welcome Antonio Andolini. Welcome, Antonio, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you having me on. It's nice to get out there and get in front of the people.
Absolutely. So talk to me about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town called Sanborn, New York. It's between Niagara Falls and Buffalo. Real rural town, farms still there to this day. And that's where I first fell in love with professional wrestling.
Buffalo, New York definitely is a big hub for wrestling, and lots of big moments came out of there. What was it about wrestling that just got you hooked right away?
Well, growing up, we were dirt poor, and my father had to work 3 jobs to make ends meet. That probably went on till I was like 8, 9, or 10 years old, but I don't ever remember him not being there. He was always there, and when he was there, it always seemed like we were watching professional wrestling. Early on, I mean, that's all it's really the only thing I ever really wanted to do with my life. But yeah, I went to my first show at the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium when I was 4 years old, and from that point forward, after seeing it live in my face, it was the only thing I ever wanted to do. And when I hit 18, 19, saved up my money, got a hold of Larry Sharp, who was the owner and operator of the Monster Factory at the time, and went from there.
Wow, 4 years old, attending your first wrestling show.
Yeah, in Buffalo. My father, I give him shit to this day about it. Like, what were you even thinking, taking me to Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, you're young, and you know, some memories kind of start crystallizing, but it's still, pretty young. It's such a young age. Who were some of your favorites growing up to watch and became idolized by, like, your influences?
Well, I mean, obviously Hulk Hogan is the first. That's like your gateway, because that's how old I am. But once you're in, and Dynamite Kid was one of my first influences, and is still to this day. I'll still be watching Dynamite Kid in Japan matches, going to sleep every single night. Then Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson was another big one. Always enjoyed Arn Anderson. That led into Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit is another one. And then that's when Dean and Eddie and all those guys were having all those great matches around that time. Yeah, and then by then I'm in the wrestling business. So
So a very eclectic mix of people that I feel
yeah,
like you're able to kind of take from each one and kind of implement into your own style. So you talked about Larry Sharp kind of helped get you started in the business. Walk me through your experiences with training. It's a very rigorous process, as I've talked with so many people about. But what was your time like learning how to wrestle?
yeah, and this is the old way. This is the year 2000, not in the years 2000, the actual year of 2000. Um, and the Monster Factory was a two-ring system. You got into the first ring, all the newbies, and you had to earn your way into the second ring. And the second ring is where the wrestling was really going on. You learned how to take your bumps and to do arm drags and stuff like that. And once you became proficient in that, you moved on to the second ring. And this is the old school style of training. So you get into the second ring, and now you have to learn how to sell. And learning how to sell, I learned every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from September until probably the beginning of November. 45 minutes at a clip where all of the wrestlers are tagging in and out, and I'm just stuck in the middle, taking everybody's stuff, learning how to hit the mat properly, and then make it look like I'm getting killed in there, which wasn't too hard in those in those training sessions.
Well, it seems like you're taking so much in, you're absorbing so much knowledge. And what was it about, uh, your process? Like any advice you got from Larry or people that you were working with that kind of stuck with you, stuck out as you were starting to learn the basics?
The great thing about the Monster Factory and the time in the wrestling business was ECW and WCW were still rolling. So you had the three big companies, everybody competing for talent at the same time. And also that talent would come back through the Monster Factory because Pretty Boy Larry Sharp has trained a lot of professional wrestlers. And there's some bad stories about Larry out there. I have no bad stories about Larry. I was living in Florida at the time. My parents had just relocated to Florida and I moved up to New Jersey. I had never been to New Jersey a day in my life. And Larry went in, did the tryout. Once Larry realized that I was athletic, um, immediately put me in with the head trainer, who was Ed the Razor or Eddie Atlas at that point in time. So I went from some small town in the middle of nowhere to right spank in the middle of the wrestling business. And like I'm in the middle of like selling, right? Learning how to sell. And we're out in the driveway, me and a couple other wrestlers working out, and up pulls Pitbull Gary Wolf. And like, this is awesome. Here's Pitbull Gary Wolf. I'm talking to Pitbull Gary Wolf. We're having a nice conversation. And then that's when you realize like Pitbull Gary Wolf is holding his gym bag. And I'm about to have to go in there and get my ass kicked by Pitbull Gary Wolf. And that happened with Balls Mahoney. The Godfather came through once, and it even happened with King Kong Bundy. Again, the old way. And once the older generation, because this is a lot of the wrestling business different. This is like 36-year-old grizzled men who, even if they didn't make it to TV, these guys were real pros that have been making a living out of this since they were like 20, 22 years old. So there was always, once you were accepted in, there was always plenty of advice coming your way from all levels. Guys who've made a whole bunch of money in this business to guys that you may have never heard of, but I've gotten in and was like, this is one of the greatest wrestlers I've ever touched in my life.
Being around these legends, it's like you're a fly on the wall and getting to be around so many of them. Memories, stories you want to share about sharing the ring. I know you'd mentioned Gary Wolf a bit ago, but like anybody that really enjoyed, learning from and taking some of that knowledge from, coming up in the business.
Probably when WCW closed down and I was in Florida working for Cliff Anderson, Jamie Noble had come through. And this is like that small downtime in between for him from WCW and WWF. And this is, again, different point in the wrestling business. I'm a cruiserweight guy who's right around 205 pounds. And a lot of territories only want to let me wrestle other cruiserweights. So Jamie coming in, like coming straight off of TV, and you knew that he was eventually going to end up back on TV because, I mean, for even his size, because he's even shorter than me, just so physically strong and so physically gifted. Like that man can literally do anything in the ring. And I wasn't shocked all these years later to hear that he's behind the scenes helping these kids out with the matches because he was a guy who really gave me a lot of good words at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie Noble, one of the greatest cruiserweight champions of all time, has got so much wealth of knowledge, giving that to so many people. And so learning from him, I'm sure that was a thrill for you.
It's all so surreal, even now today. Like I'm working a lot with Paul Roma, and it's just so surreal to be standing there and not only you're talking to him, but you're talking about the wrestling business, and he's agreeing with what you're saying. Like that's when it's really like, whoa, like what the hell is even going on here?
You're bumping shoulders with all these people. You get in the ring, you make your debut. Nervous, scared, afraid. What were some things that going through your mind like made you kind of overcome some of those?
I can't even remember the first one. That's how nervous and like shocked. And then after the first one, that whole first run, it was like I'd hit that curtain and like this other guy would show up. And like I didn't have to do nothing. It was almost like I was sitting in the back seat while this other guy was doing all of the crowd work and the moves and everything else. And then it's like almost like I like being a baseball player, baseball players hitting everything and he's in the zone, right? It's like I just would go into that tunnel and I wouldn't come out of that tunnel until I hit the uh again.
Finish line or
Yeah.
the end of the match. Once you got until the end of the match, you're able to kind of, when once the bell rung, that was it, until the
Yeah.
end of the match.
And again, like your first year, you're really processing a lot on the move. Like it's the first few are like, what the hell even just happened? Like I was out there for how long? You were out there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes? Okay. Like that seemed like it went by in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's just like, you're finished with it, you move on to the next one. And so from there, you build up that confidence. And so, what's like your biggest motivator, when you're working a match, things can happen. What's your biggest like go-to for like trying to keep on going, when things are kind of hard out there?
Well, for me, it's a little bit different now. I work for reactions. So as long as I'm getting the reactions, I know that the match is going the way I want it to go. And because I'm Sergeant Antonio Andolini, there's certain reactions that I'm going to get, like the USA chants and the Let's Go Sarge chants. Um, Again, after what happened in between and being a soldier and going to war, like I don't get nervous or anything. I'm in way more control now at this age than I was when I first started out, even with the break that I ended up having in between, which I'm sure we're going to get to. Um, but now it's really honing in on the crowd and using what I have learned from a lot of great professional wrestlers as far as it's not moves. It's not what you're doing, it's how you do it. And that's where I'm at right now in my career.
It's that psychology. I think that's
Yeah.
very important to have because you want to know why this is happening instead of just doing it. You want to
Yep.
be able to tell a story so that the crowd knows what's happening and that it all makes sense.
Yep. And that's what, that's why it's like, well, there's only so many ways we can go here if this isn't working. Right. And I
Mhm.
already understand that there's only A, B, and C right now if they're not doing what I want them to do. So let's start with A and work our way down and get it all back on track.
Well, when you're in the ring, being a seasoned veteran, getting the chance to wrestle against a lot of different people and sharing the ring with so many great legends, who have been some people that you've enjoyed really being in the ring with during your time in the business?
Well, I'll more speak to right now. Um, uh, Corey and Caleb Duke are a pair of cowboys up here in the territories that are running hot. They're absolutely fantastic young wrestlers. I'm always looking for fantastic young wrestlers so that I can wrestle fantastic young wrestlers, so that I can share what the guys of yesteryear told me, because from what I'm seeing, it seems like there's some point of a disconnect in the way a lot of wrestling is now today compared to what we were doing even in this is the Attitude Era. This isn't like 1985. Like, this is the Attitude Era style of wrestling that I do. You know, it's not going to be as many flips and dives out of the ring as it's going to be suplexes and wrestling holds. And that's one of the reasons why I actually came back, because styles make fights, and I would like some.
Carvana's so easy, just a click, and we've got ourselves a car. See?
So many cars. That's a click-tastic inventory.
And check out the financing options. Payments to fit our budget. I mean, that's
Clickonomics 101.
Delivery to our door.
Just a hop, skip, and a click away.
And bought.
No better feeling than when everything just clicks. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Of these kids to take up these tools that I have, put them in their toolbox so that they can mix in today with yesterday, because that's what wrestling truly is. It's always will be about the history and what came before it. And as long as you're dipping into the past while you're using the present, Old Sarge is okay with you.
We want to talk about, speaking of the past, going back a little bit. You had wrestled, got into the business, and then took a break for a while. And talking about serving your community, you were, and are a sergeant working in the Army for the United States. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I literally wrestled a show on 9/9 that Saturday. I didn't have one on that Sunday. I was a bartender at that point, so I had closed the bar the night before 9/11, and by the time I woke up, it had already all happened, and I didn't even know what was going on. And then I saw the Pentagon, and once I saw the Pentagon, I'm like, oh, we're at war. And serving our country, my father served, my grandfather served, my great-grandfather was a big-time war hero in Italy. That's how my family even got to this country in World War I. He went from like 15,000 something on the list to like number 12. And literally the moment World War I ended, my great-grandfather was on a boat coming here to America. So I just felt it was my time to do my part. And I was only 21 at the time. I had already 2 years almost in the business. Like, I knew if I took and stepped away for a couple of years, it wasn't going to hurt me. Plus, I'm going to add in all of that military discipline, which, a lot of professional wrestlers, don't have a lot of discipline besides working out and showing up to the show. This is why we're professional wrestlers. We're usually not good at authority, which it was a huge adjustment for me coming from basically being a pro wrestler on the road to joining the Army. But yeah, off we go. 3 years. I thought I'd be gone for. 3 became 5. 5 became 7. And now I'm getting close to the age where if you're not on the WWE's radar, and now the WWE is the only game in town. If you're not on the WWE's radar, then you're probably going to end up being too old. At this point, I had met a girl as I was transitioning out of the Army. I'm getting married, wanting to start a family, and maybe it's not the best time right now to go on the road. So I just stuck it on the shelf and left it there for a long time. And it stayed there until January of 2020. I ended up buying the Royal Rumble that year. This is right before COVID and the world turns off. I buy the Royal Rumble. I go away on a business trip 3 days later. I come back from the business trip. My wife's telling me she's been sick the whole time. She's asking me if she looks yellow. I'm like, yeah, you do kind of look yellow. It's like, maybe I need to go to the doctor. Yeah, maybe you should. We go to sleep that night. Wake up the next day, her eyes are yellow. Now the whites of her eyes are now yellow. And right to the emergency room. We would then spend the next 3.5 months, I think, in the hospital. They wanted to remove her appendix, her gallbladder, a kidney. Then they narrowed it down to the liver, and she was now on the liver transplant list. Regular medications were doing nothing to her except for making her break out in rashes. But the whole time we're in the hospital, we're watching wrestling. And me and my wife never really spoke about this because my wife knows the soldier. She met me while I was a sergeant in the Army. She just knows that this was something I was doing before I joined the Army, and I might get back to it. Probably not, because we're going to, start this family right here. And then by the time this happens, I'll be way too old. To make a long story short, my kids fall in love with wrestling at this same point in time. So now while we're in the hospital, we're watching the app with all the wrestling on it. They're at their grandmother's house. They're watching the app with all the wrestling on it. We get out of the hospital a week before the world shuts down from COVID. And we spend the next month and a half, 2 months at home as a family, literally watching wrestling all day, every day. And by the end, now I'm lifting again, right? Now I'm like, even in my brain, I'm like, I can't let the boys see me like this. Like, if I ever saw one of these guys again and I looked like this, I would be embarrassed. Let me start working out, right? Now I'm starting to get results, and now I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Like, now you're too old, you've missed your window, you missed your window. You're okay with missing your window. And then I took my kids just to the Royal Rumble in 2024. And I'm telling my wife, this is how I got bit. I went when I was 4 years old, and that was it. And now they're already talking, this is all they want to do. They want to be pro wrestlers, but they've never seen it live. So the world's back on, full arenas. Let's get them to the Rumble. We get them to the Rumble. I'm sitting there for about a half hour, and I'm like, I'm going to end up back in the ring by the end of this year. I know it right now. I'm going to end up and I was, August of that year, I was at the 3D Academy after listening to Bubba on the radio on that Busted Open program. I knew that he was still teaching pro wrestling the way I learned pro wrestling, and that was the only thing I would be interested in going back to start again. His trainer's Randy Shawn. Quick friends, like we're best buddies, like we knew each other for 25 years. He broke in the same time I broke in, only he kept going, and I went off and had a family and did the Army thing. And he got me up and running. I had him start me from scratch, like I had never learned anything, even though you'll never have to teach me how to sell ever again. You'll never, like, ring psychology, always something to learn, but already have the basics in my pocket, right? So we started from scratch and worked our way back up. I actually had my first match back in the Monster Factory, just to close like the chapter on the life on that book. And then I've spun off from there. And within the last 3 or 4 months, I started working for Paul Roma. After one show with Paul, he pulled me aside and he's like, you got to come down, and me and you got to work on some things. Like, I like this. This is what I like. You're an old school wrestler. There's not very many of you floating around. Come through the school and let me tighten up a couple things. So that's now brought me into the PAPW fold, which is Paradise Pro Valley Wrestling. And now, I got Paul, I got 3D, I got Paul, all kinds of people helping me out now. And then this is how the podcasting stuff started. Because again, I'm an analog man in the digital world. I wasn't even on the internet. I didn't have a social media account for myself. I've never done any of that stuff until about August of this year.
Wow. So you're just making your way now into the wrestling industry as a rising star. And I think that's so cool, having that background in the Army. I've had wrestlers on in the past that have done that line of work before they became wrestlers, but this is the reverse situation. So I am sure, like, the training that you got as a wrestler helped prepare you for something as big as as being in the Army.
Oh, yes. And again, the old school way of training where you're getting jumped into this thing. So the Army was just being told what to do and where you got to be at what time. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That was my biggest hurdle to overcome. But once I overcame that hurdle, I was good to go there for the rest of the way.
Well, let's talk about how you were able to serve your community being in something like that, because you're there every day risking your life and trying to defend our country. And so being able to take on that huge task, what was like the most rewarding thing about your time serving our country in the Army?
We were the only all-volunteer military that joined to go fight during wartime. In this country, it's always been a draft. You were always drafted, whether you go all the way back to the beginning in 1776, they're drafting people. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. Desert Storm just happened. That was something where you were in, that went down, and like 2 weeks later, it was over. You didn't know that was coming. It just happened while you were serving. Not to take anything away from what happened in Desert Storm, but what we did at that point in time in American history and in world history, we were an all volunteer force and we were fighting wars in 3 countries simultaneously at the same time that the American people even know about.
Are there any causes that mean a lot to you that you are involved with as far as like charity or things in your community that you've been able to help with? Both.
I've started this and got back into this, and one of my goals is to start bringing more awareness to veteran suicide. I feel like veterans are coming back from combat and we're getting left behind. And I think there needs to be way more systems in place tracking what is going on with my brothers and sisters who volunteered to go fight your wars for you, to make sure that they're not left behind. And that's something that we strive for in the military when we're in combat, is to leave nobody behind. And I feel like once we're getting out and getting back into the civilian world, some of my brothers and sisters, from what they've done, are getting left behind. And I'd like to really raise the awareness to the point where we're really doing something about that, not just talking about it.
Was there a particular instance or an example that you may have of something that you experienced while you were serving in the Army that might be related to this issue?
Well, guys that have been blown up, because it's usually blown up. It's usually not bullet holes. You've been blown up by a roadside bomb and you're missing an appendage. And now you went from being this alpha fighting male who literally stepped up and was almost paid the highest price to now, what they'll say to me, being a cripple. And you're not a cripple. You're a Purple Heart who gave almost the ultimate price, but you survived, type of thing. And I unfortunately know way too many people that's happened to. And again, systems need to be in place so that this doesn't continue to happen in the future.
You want to be able to make sure to keep everyone safe from harm. So I think that's important that we mention that.
Yeah, definitely. Not to turn it into like a down type of listen here or anything like that. For us, the rest is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. Well, what is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
It's the same thing that brought me back to wrestling. It's the brotherhood. I'll never grow out of the brotherhood. I tried getting away from the brotherhood. Like, that's another thing that a lot of veterans get caught up into. You can't really soldier no more because of what we're going through. And then you get into the civilian world and it's like, well, this is not anything like I want to be doing right now with civilians. It's just a different way of life compared to what we are used to living, right? So.
Well, before we wrap things up here, you're getting back into the business now. What are your goals as far as being a professional wrestler is concerned?
My goals are to be one of the boys, which is the actual meaning for one of the boys, meaning you can make enough money to provide for your family just off of the wrestling business. I know that a lot of people think they're one of the boys, but that's really the real definition of the thing. And then again, like I said, to then use that platform to help out other veterans in any way that I can, Yeah. It's the one tool I have left in my toolbox. And I'm still getting around pretty good, even for a guy my age.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting back into it, you're trying to take off all the rust, so to speak. You're
able to rot. It wasn't even rust. I was so long. I was rotten. I needed to start all over again, but it's like riding a bike.
Exactly. Well, Antonio, I want to say thank you again for coming on, reaching out, and wanting to be a part of the show. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you on social media, the pages that you've just launched? Feel free to plug anything that you feel you should need to do.
Everything is at Andolini Army, ANDOLINI Army. Bookings is at Gmail, or again, you can hit me up on the social medias. I know promoters do it that way too. In the new year, you will still be able to find me at Pure Vanguard Wrestling, Lucky Pro Wrestling, which is out of Massachusetts, and of course, Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, run by Paul Roman and Mario Mancini.
All right. Well, thanks again, Antonio, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you letting me help to get the word out.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.